The story of the Mary Celeste begins on a crisp November morning in 1872. The brigantine rested quietly in the harbor of New York City, her sails neatly furled, her hull loaded with nearly 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol bound for Genoa, Italy. On board were Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and 7 experienced crewmen. 10 souls in all. The captain was a seasoned sailor, respected by his men. The voyage was expected to be routine, a simple merchant journey across the Atlantic. In the early days at sea, the weather was calm. The captain recorded precise notes in the logbook. The crew worked without trouble, and the ship sailed steadily eastward. But the Atlantic has its moods. A storm rolled in, battering the vessel with wind and rain. The Mary Celeste fought back. Masts creaked, waves crashed, but she endured. When the sea finally calmed, she continued her voyage as if nothing had happened. Yet, this would be the last ordinary voyage she would ever make. Soon she would be found adrift, silent and empty. On December 5, 1872, the Dei Gratia was making her way through the North Atlantic when the lookout spotted a vessel drifting aimlessly in the distance. Through a spyglass, they could see the sails partially set but slack, and no one on deck. Captain David Morehouse, who knew Captain Briggs personally, ordered a boarding party. As their small boat approached, the Mary Celeste loomed silently over the waves. When the boarding crew climbed aboard, they were met with eerie stillness. The wheel was unmanned, the rigging loose, and the deck empty. Below deck, the captain's cabin was untouched, clothing folded, a sewing kit laid out, a child's doll resting on the bed. Food sat half-eaten on the table. The lifeboat was missing, but nothing else appeared disturbed. The cargo was intact, the ship seaworthy. In the logbook, the last entry was 10 days earlier. There were no signs of struggle, no blood, no violence, only absence. 10 people had vanished into the sea without leaving a trace. When the abandoned vessel was brought to Gibraltar, she became an instant sensation. Inspectors examined the hull, measured the cargo, studied the logbook. Nothing was broken. No sign of mutiny, no attack, no storm damage. Of the 1,700 barrels of alcohol, 9 were empty. The rest were untouched. It was as if the crew had simply walked away from a perfectly good ship. Theories soon filled the newspapers. Some whispered of mutiny, but the lack of blood or broken equipment made that unlikely. Others suggested piracy, but nothing valuable was missing. A more plausible explanation emerged. Leaking alcohol could have created explosive fumes. Fearing an imminent blast, Briggs might have ordered everyone into the lifeboat, planning to return after the danger passed. But the sea is merciless. A single gust, a line cut, a small mistake, and the lifeboat could have drifted away forever. Still, no lifeboat was ever found. No bodies, just a mystery adrift in the Atlantic. The mystery of the Mary Celeste grew as the story spread. In smoky taverns across Europe and America, sailors whispered her name like a curse. Newspapers printed lurid headlines about ghostly apparitions and phantom lights. People began to imagine what it must have felt like to board a ship where time seemed frozen. A doll on the bed, food on the table, empty decks, no one left to answer. Rumors turned to legends. They spoke of cursed voyages, of shadows walking the deck at night. Some claimed to see strange lights at sea near the place she was found. The true story was terrifying, not because of what was found, but because of what was on T. No storm, no pirates, no wreckage, just a good ship and a vanished crew. It is that silence, that unanswered question, that made the legend endure. Though the Mary Celeste was eventually put back into service, her reputation never recovered. Sailors called her cursed. Men refused to sail on her. Accidents and bad luck followed her from port to port. Years later, the ship met its own quiet end off the coast of the West Indies. But her legend had already taken on a life of its own. Historians, storytellers, and sailors still return to the question, what happened to Benjamin Briggs, Sarah, little Sophia, and the 7 crewmen? How can a ship remain intact while every soul aboard vanishes without a trace? Over a century later, the mystery remains unsolved. The Mary Celeste sails on in the imagination, a ghost ship drifting forever in the fog of history. The sea keeps its secrets.